Hello and welcome back to my channel. This is Tracy with Artful Creations by Tracy. I am back with another design team project for tailor-made cards for you, and this month's theme is Shades of Orange. This is a video hop, so please check out all the other videos in this hop. I invite you to visit Tailor-Made Cards for You's blog and enter this month's challenge where anything goes. This month's prize is a $10 gift code from Tailor-Made Cards for You to be used on her website. You will also find a discount code for 20% off your digital order. I will have all the links below, including those used for today's project. Now for today's project, I am back to creating cards. I accidentally deleted the introduction for the digital images before I cut them out, but it's all good. Here are the beautiful background images already sized to fit my A2 cards. I'll also be using some craft paper and all those glorious ephemera images that I printed and had my Cricut cut out for me. I will also be using the 3 distress inks, Rusty Hinge, Wild Honey, and Tea Dye. Also stickles in orange and black diamond, along with some raffia and jute from my stash. I will take my Neenah 80-pound cardstock, already cut and scored, and fold it using my bone folder to make a nice crease. I want to use this craft paper for a layered background. I will then use my Tim Holtz distressing tool to rough up the edges all around that cardstock, as well as my printed paper. Using the Wild Honey Distress ink and my rabbit tail blending tool, I will work those edges a little more and make them bend and fold. Now I'm going to glue down my printed paper to my craft paper and glue some of those folds back, exposing more of the craft paper. I will then layer some of the ephemera on the card to see what I think will work well together. I decided to take that tag and make it a little shorter by cutting it in half and gluing it together. Then I'll add some more distress edges and ink it up. And by the way, I am using art glitter glue today for my cards. I'm going to use raffia to cover up the spliced portion on my tag, placing the glue down, then the raffia. I really love how the raffia works so well for this card series. Next, I will add a little piece of jute that I cut to the front, because you know how I love my layers. I also love using liquid glue, since it will give me some time for placement, and once it dries, it will be clear and it really does stick well. Once I add that piece of jute, I'm going to fan out the very bottom portion of that jute, and then I'll add a little glue to make sure it stays in place. Then I'm going to add the little ticket on the top, and then I'm going to put this on my card, but before I do that, I want to give it some more dimension, and I will of course add foam tape to that. Once my tag is on, I'm going to place that stamp half on the tag and half off, so I will just add some foam tape to the one side of the stamp and glue to the other side, as you see me doing here. Then all you need to do is butt up the bottom of the stamp with the foam against the tag and press that down. Before I glue this to my card base, I'm going to ink the edges of that base because the white is too much of a contrast. You don't need a whole lot of ink here, just enough for a nice subtle coverage. And now card number 1 is done. For the next card, I will start out distressing the sides like I typically do, and then I will use the Rusty Hinge ink to ink up my sides. And because I print these out on white copy paper, I want to make sure that the ink really covers up the distressed images. Now, speaking of paper, I know I've mentioned this once or twice before. Monica recommends using the Hammermill premium color copy paper to print out digital images onto. I'm going to grab that second tag, and I decide I'm going to now just cut off the top of that so that the image matches the woman on the card. I'll snip off the corners of the tag, and then I will distress it and ink the edges. Once I do that, I'm going to do the same thing with the little stamp that's with the collection. And then I'm going to fold my card base and place the craft paper on an angle. Then I will trim off the pieces that are hanging beyond the card edges. I'm going to use that same Rusty Hinge distressed ink, or I should say distress ink, and ink the corners of the card. And again, we don't really need a whole lot of ink to do this. Once again, I'm going to bring in the raffia and I will wrap the card with it, making sure to glue it down so it doesn't bunch up. The raffia is more plastic-like versus the paper raffia. Now, I do like to have it go in random directions, and I do apologize that I am off camera a lot today. Now it's time to glue it to my card base and then add my altered tag. But I want to add dimension to that as well as the stamp, so I will put foam tape on the back of both. And there we have it, card number 2. For my third card, I did lose a little footage, but nothing was really missed. I had already distressed my card, and for this one I decided to make a hole in the card by just using a pair of scissors to pierce it, and then cut around it and tear the rest to make it look more tattered. The background looks like a fence, and some fences have random holes in them. I will glue a piece of scrap craft paper behind it, and then of course ink everything up. I'll use Rusty Hinge again for this card, but I won't ink the entire card, just the areas I wish to highlight more. I've already distressed the ephemera, so I'll ink it up and then I will add raffia to my card as well. Since I didn't have a lot of raffia left, I had wished that I had spread it out more to get a little more coverage on my card, but I glued it down before I thought about that. But I'm making the best of it. I already inked my card base, and here I am thinking about the fact that I didn't have enough raffia the way I wanted it, so I decided that I'm going to use some jute. I'm going to make 2 loops and knot it with the tails from the jute coming out. I purposely didn't want a bow here, and once I get them to the size I like, I'll just twist the jute around itself, glue it down and into place, and then I'll put my MISTI on top to hold it down and dry. I'm pointing to the fact that I wanted to add that lily to the top of the knot, and somehow it got lost. I looked everywhere for it, and soon you'll see that I eventually find it. It was stuck to the microfiber cloth when I cleaned my plastic mat off. Okay, on to my last card. I decided that I'm going to tear the front of the card. Now, I do love to paper tear, and I will remove a portion of this and save it for the inside of my card, which you will see later. You will need to make sure that you have the torn pieces match up to your card size, and I'm going to do that by adding a piece of that craft paper. The first one was a little too short, so I bring in the larger one, and I do like to use up as many scraps as I can. Once I get that measured, I will trim off the side and then use the tea dye ink and ink up all my edges. And then I will add a little more distressing to the card front and really accentuate those couple of areas that I want to look a little bit more distressed than the rest of the card. And then I will use that same ink to ink the edges of my card base as well. You may note a theme with my inks. I use the same ink to ink up the card fronts and my card bases. And poof, there is my flower. I was grabbing my microfiber cloth and there it was. Now I'll just go ahead and finish up my card number 3 by adding the glue and putting the flower on top. And here I am just putting some weight down so it will stay. All right, back to card number 4. I will add one of the ephemera pieces that says perfume. It has eyelet holes printed on it, so I decided that I'm going to add brads to hold it in place. Actually, I'm going to glue it first, and then I will use my pokey tool and poke holes to add that piece. Actually, it's more for decoration purposes instead of functional. As you can see, my card front is not yet attached to my card base. I will add the brads to that card front, and then the back side will then be glued to my base, and therefore the brads will be hidden. I feel this gives the card a more finished presentation. Now to glue it up and finish. I will use the jute and trim off, or actually I'm going to make a bow this time, and then I will trim off the tails. And it's important to remember to have your bow not come off your card or it won't fit in your envelope. Now to finish the card, I will add the remaining ephemera to the inside of my cards, something I don't do very often, but will start to do more of. I really think it finishes off the card nicely. And there we have my 4 cards using the Shades of Orange digital kit. Oh, and I nearly forgot, I wanted to add the stickles to various areas of my cards. And as I finish this up, I thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed, I would love it if you did, and hit the bell for all my upload notifications, which aren't many right now, but I still am a new and growing channel. Thank you to those who have been with me for a while, and don't forget to check out the rest of the videos in this hop, and have a very blessed day.